tell you about Shivpuran, and it has all the characteristics of a Mahapuran, and it has 5 main characteristics that either concerned early religion or traditional history. And in the Shivpuran, one of these characteristics talks about the origin of the universe, the Sarga, and it's a very important feature of religion. As a Mahapuran and a sacred work of Shiva cult, Shivpuran possesses this important trait. And in this Shivpuran, it discusses the origin of the universe, the sustenance of it, and then the destruction through various episodes. So today, and itself there are 3 principles it talks about: the Sattva, the Rajas, and the Tamas, personified as the 3 deities, which is Vishnu, Brahma, and Rudra. And these 3 have their respective energies called Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Kali. So it's a tough read. So bear with me, and bhul chuk maaf for any mispronunciations. But today we'll start with chapter 1 to 3 in English and chapter 1 and 2 in Hindi. The Hindi is more of a concise version. And we have Mansi Aunty here who will read the Hindi version. And Mansi Aunty is coordinating this seva. So anybody who would like to read in the temple, please reach out to her, and she'll coordinate with you and organize and assign you the pages or chapters to read. So with Guruji's blessings, let's all begin. The Shivpuran Mahatmyam, chapter 1, the greatness of Shivpuran. Saunaka said, O Suta of great intellect, O my Lord, the knower of all philosophical principles, please narrate to me the essence of the Puranas in detail. How do good conduct, good devotion, and power of discrimination flourish? How are base feelings dispelled by good men? In this terrible Kali age, all living beings have almost become demoniac in character. What is the effective mode of remedying the same? Now tell me about the greatest means to achieve the most perfect wheel, the holiest of the holy modes. What is that? The practice of which particularly purifies the soul. What is that which enables a man of unsullied mind to attain Shiva? Suta said, O foremost among sages, you are blessed indeed, as you are desirous of hearing. Guruji used to say कि एक chapter, एक page, एक paragraph भी Shivpuran का daily पढ़ लो, your karmas get expiated and you have lots of blessings. और Guruji जब physical form में थे, he would take over karmas of others, like the diseases or ailments, and he would vomit blood. और वो संगत को कहते थे कि शिवपुराण पढ़ो, मेरे को उसमें relief मिलता है. So hence I shall ponder over the greatest of the sacred lore intelligently and tell you. O dear, listen to that divine panacea evolved out of all religious tenets, heightening true devotion and conducive to the pleasure of Shiva. It is destructive of the great fear of the python of Kala, death. O sage, it is the noble Shiva Purana, formerly narrated by Shiva himself. For the benefit of the people in the age of Kali, the sage Vyasa has abridged it out of great respect for the sage Sanat Kumara on being instructed by him. O sage, there is nothing other than Shiva Purana for the purification of the mind, especially of the people of the Kali age. It is only the intelligent and the highly fortunate man who has accumulated great merits in his previous birth who will be drawn towards it. This Shiva Purana is the greatest and the noblest of the sacred lore. It is the form of Shiva, and as such is to be served and realized in this world. By reading this and listening to it, the good man becomes very pious. By all means, he instantly attains Shiva's region. Hence, every endeavor of men to read this is desirable. Loving care to listen to it yields all desired results. By listening to this Purana of Shiva, a man becomes sinless. After enjoying all extensive worldly pleasures, he will attain the region of Shiva. Merely by listening to the story of Shiva, a man secures that merit which results from the performance of Rajasuya and 100 Agni Stomas. O sage, those who listen to Shiv Purana, the noblest of sacred lore, cease to be mere human beings. They must be undoubtedly considered as manifestations of Rudra, a form of Shiva. Sages consider the dust in the feet of those who habitually listen to the Purana and recite it, on a par with holy centers. May those who wish to attain the seat of salvation listen always to the holy Shivpurana with great devotion. O noblest among sages, if he is unable to listen to it always, let him hear it for a short while, every day, with his mind fully controlled. If anyone is unable to listen to it every day, O sage, let him listen to Shivpuran in the holy months. Those who listen to the Puran even for a muhurta, 48 minutes, half that period, 1/4 of that period, or even for a moment, will not suffer from mishaps. O Lord of sages, the man who listens to that Purana crosses the ocean of worldly existence after burning the great forest of karma, binding actions. O sage, the merit that accrues from all gifts and all sacrifices becomes stabilized after listening to Shiv Puran. Particularly in the age of Kali, there is no greater virtue conducive to the achievement of liberation of men, O sage, than listening to Shiv Puran. There is no doubt in this, that listening to the Puran and reciting the names of Shiva is as efficacious as the Kalpa tree in yielding one's desires. For the benefit of the evil-minded persons of the Kali age, bereft of virtuous conduct, Lord Shiva has produced the nectar in the form of Shiv Puran. A single man, the man who drinks nectar, becomes immortal and unaging, but the nectar of the divine story of Shiva, if drunk, makes the whole family immortal and unaging. The sanctifying story of Shiv Puran must always be resorted to, definitely so. Merely by listening to Shiv Puran, if such good results, what am I to say about the result when Shiva abides in the heart? This work consists of 24,000 verses divided into 7 samhitas, compendiums. The 3 kinds of devotion, by meditation, recital of prayer, and acts of worship and service, are fully explained in it. It must be listened to with great respect. The first compendium is called the Vidyeshwara Samhita, the second is the Rudra Samhita, the third is the Sata Rudra, and the fourth is the Koti Rudra. The fifth compendium is called the Uma Samhita, and the sixth is the Kailasha Samhita, and the seventh is the Vyayviva. Thus, there are 7 Samhitas in this Purana. This divine Purana of 7 Samhitas and called after Shiva stands on an equal footing with Brahman, i.e. the Vedic texts, and accords an achievement that is superior to everything else. He who reads the entire Shiv Puran without omitting any of the 7 Samhitas can be called a Jivan Mukta, a living liberated soul. O sage, the ignorant man is tossed about in the ocean of worldly existence till the excellent Shiv Puran reaches his ears. Of what avail is listening to many sacred texts and other confounding Purans? The Shiv Puran alone loudly proclaims its readiness to grant salvation. The house where the discourse on this Shiv Puran is held becomes a holy center. It destroys the sins of the inmates of the house. Thousands of horse sacrifices and hundreds of Vijapya sacrifices do not merit even a 16th part of Shiv Puran. O best of sages, a sinner is called a sinner till the moment he hears Shiv Puran with great devotion. The holy rivers, Ganga and others, the 7 sacred cities, and Gaya can never be equal to Shiv Puran. If one wishes for the greatest of goals, liberation, one shall recite at least a stanza or even half of it from the Shiv Puran. He who constantly listens to Shiv Puran, fully comprehending its meaning, or simply reads it with devotion, is undoubtedly a meritorious soul. Lord Mahesana Shiva is extremely pleased with the sensible man who listens to Shiv Puran when death is imminent. Lord Shiva accords him a seat in his own region. He who adores the Shiv Puran with great devotion enjoys in the world all desired objects and attains Shivalok. Never slack in his devotion to the Shiv Puran. He who keeps this work well wrapped in a silk cloth will ever be happy. The holy Shiv Puran, the sole possession of a devotee of Shiva, should assiduously be resorted to by a person who desires for happiness here and hereafter. The holy Shiv Puran that accords the 4 aims of life, virtue, wealth, love, and salvation, must be heard and read with great devotion, always. The Shiv Puran, the greatest harbinger of the perfect welfare among Vedas, Itihasas, and other sacred texts, must be thoroughly understood by those who seek salvation. This Shiv Puran is the greatest resort of the knowers of Atman, spiritual seekers forever. It is the noblest object worthy of adoration of good men. It suppresses the 3 types of distresses, physical illness, extraneous attacks, and divine calamities. It accords happiness always, and it is very pleasing to all devas led by Brahma, Hari, and Isa. With the mind extremely delighted, I bow unto Shivpurana forever. May Shiva be pleased and bestow on me a devotion to his feet. Chapter 2. The Liberation of Devraj. Saunaka said, O Suta, thou art the most blessed and the most fortunate knower of the greatest truth. Thou hast narrated to us out of great compassion this divine wonderful tale. This wonderful narrative that destroys hosts of sins, purifies the mind, and propitiates Lord Shiva has been heard by us. Thanks to thy compassion, we have decisively realized that there is nothing so fine and nice as this tale. Who are those among sinners in the Kali age who get sanctified by this story? Please enlighten us. Make the whole world gratified. Suta said, men who habitually commit sin, wicked persons indulging in vicious activities, and persons of lecherous disposition become pure hereby. This is great Jnana Yagna, sacrificial rite of wisdom. It yields worldly enjoyment as well as salvation. It dispels all sins and delights Shiva. Men overwhelmed by the thirst of covetousness, those devoid of truthfulness, those who decry even their parents, haughty vain fellows, and persons prone to violent activities become sanctified by this. Those who never practice the duties of their varnas and ashramas, castes, and walks of life, and those of malicious temperament become sanctified thanks to the Jnana Yagna even in the Kali age. Those who habitually practice deception and those who are ruthless and of cruel disposition are sanctified by this Jnana Yagna even in the Kali age. Those who misappropriate the wealth of Brahmins and thereby nourish themselves, and those who indulge in heinous crimes of adultery become sanctified by this Jnana Yagna even in the Kali age. Those who always indulge in sinful actions and those who are roguish persons of wicked mind become sanctified by this Jnana Yagna even in the Kali age. Men of unclean habits and wicked minds, men who know no peace and men who swallow temple and trust properties become sanctified by this Jnana Yagna even in the Kali age. The merit accruing from this Puran destroys great sins, yields worldly enjoyments and salvation, and delights Lord Shiva. In this context, an ancient anecdote is cited as an example, the mere hearing of which removes all sins utterly. In the city of Kiratas, there lived a Brahmin extremely poor and deficient in Brahmanical knowledge. He used to sell various kinds of beverage and was averse to the worship of gods or to virtuous activities. He never practiced the daily Sandhya prayers or ablutions. His practice resembled a Vaishya's mode of living. He never hesitated to deceive credulous persons. His name was Devraj. Either by killing or by using various deceitful means, he used to rob Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and others. Thus, by foul means, much wealth was later accumulated by him. But the sinner that he was, not even the slightest part of his wealth was utilized in virtuous acts. Once that Brahmin went to a lake to take his bath. There he saw a harlot called Shobhavati, who was much agitated at her sight. The beautiful woman was extremely delighted on coming to know that a rich Brahmin had become her willing slave. The Brahmin's heart was filled with love due to her pleasant talk. He decided to make her his wife, and she consented to have him as her husband. Thus in mutual love they sported for a long time. Sitting, lying, eating, drinking, playing together, they were not at all different from any other wedded couple. Dissuaded again and again by his mother, father, first wife, and others, though he never paid heed to their words, but continued his sinful activities. Once he became so enraged as to kill his mother, father, and wedded wife at dead of night while they were asleep, and took possession of all their wealth. Enamored of the courtesan, he handed over to her his own wealth and also the wealth that he looted from his father, mother, and first wife. In the company of this harlot, he used to eat all sorts of forbidden food, became an addict to wine and spirituous liquors, and partook of his food from the same plate as his concubine. Once by chance he came to the city of Pratisthana. He saw a Shiv temple where saintly men had congregated. During his stay there, he was afflicted by an acute fever. He heard the discourse on Shiva conducted by a Brahmin. The Brahmin Devraj, suffering from fever, died at the end of a month. He was bound with nooses by Yama's attendants and forcibly taken to Yama's city. In the meanwhile, Shiva's attendants, dressed in white, smeared with ashes all over their body, wearing garlands of rudraksh and wielding tridents in their hands, started furiously from Shivalok and reached Yama's city. They threatened the attendants of Yama, the god of death, and thrashed them. Releasing Devraj from their clutches, they seated him in a wonderful aerial chariot. When they were about to start to Kailasha, a great tumult arose in the middle of Yama's city, on hearing which Dharamraj, the god of death, himself came out of the palace. On seeing the four messengers who appeared like replicas of Rudra himself, Dharamraj, the knower of virtues, honored them in accordance with the custom. Yama came to know of everything through his vision of wisdom. Out of fear, he did not question the noble attendants of Shiva. Being duly honored and adored by Yama, they went to Kailasha and handed over the Brahmin to Shiva, the very ocean of mercy, and to the divine mother Parvati. Blessed indeed is the story of Shivpuran, the holiest of holy stories, a mere hearing of which qualifies even the greatest sinner for salvation. The great seat of Sadashiva is the greatest abode and the noblest of positions, which Vedic scholars have extolled as stationed above all lokas, worlds. Devraj, the base Brahmin, addicted to wine, enamored by a vile harlot, slayer of his own father, mother, and wife, and who out of greed for money had killed many Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras and others, became a liberated soul instantaneously on reaching that supreme law. Chapter 3. Chanchala's Disillusion and Detachment. Shaunaka said, O Suta of great intellect, thou art extremely blessed and omniscient. By thy favor I am gratified to satiate again and again. My mind rejoices much on hearing this old anecdote. Please narrate another story equally increasing devotion to Shiva. Nowhere in the world are those who drink nectar honored with liberation. But in regard to the nectar of story of Shiva, it is different. When drunk, it straightway accords salvation. Thou art blessed, blessed indeed. Blessed, blessed is the story of Shiva, on hearing which a man attains Shivaloka. Suta said, O Shaunaka, please listen, I shall tell you, though it is a great secret, since you are the foremost among Vedic scholars and a leading devotee of Shiva. There is a seaside village, Baskala, where sinful people bereft of Vedic virtue reside. They are wicked, debauchees with deceptive means of livelihood, atheists, farmers bearing weapons, and adulterous rogues. They know not anything about true knowledge, detachment, or true virtue. They are brutish in their mental makeup and take a great deal of interest in listening to evil gossips and slander. People of different castes are equally roguish, never paying attention to their duties. Always drawn to worldly pleasures, they are ever engrossed in one evil action or another. All the women too are equally crooked, boorish, and sinful, evil-tempered, loose in morals. They are devoid of good behavior and disciplined life. In the village of Baskala, people by wicked people, there was a base Brahmin called Binduja. He was a wicked sinner, traversing evil paths. Although he had a beautiful wife, he was enamored of a prostitute. His passion for her completely upset his mind. He forsook his devoted wife Chanchala and indulged in sexual dalliance with the prostitute, overwhelmed by Cupid's arrows. Many years thus elapsed without any abatement in his evil action. Afraid of violating her chastity, Chanchala, though smitten by Cupid, bore her distress calmly for a short while. But later on, as her youthful health and boisterous virility increased, Cupid's onslaught became extremely unbearable for her, and she ceased from strictly adhering to her virtuous conduct. Unknown to her husband, she began to indulge in sexual intercourse with her sinful paramour at night. Fallen thus from sattvic virtues, she went ahead along her evil ways. O sage, once he saw his wife amorously indulging in sexual intercourse with her paramour at night. Seeing his wife thus defiled by the paramour at night, he furiously rushed at them. When the roguish, deceitful paramour knew that the wicked Binduja had returned to the house, he fled from the scene immediately. The wicked Binduja caught hold of his wife and with threats and abuses fisted her again and again. The whorish wicked woman Chanchala, thus beaten by her husband, became infuriated and spoke to her wicked husband. Chanchala said, Foul-minded that you are, you indulge in sexual intercourse with the harlot every day. You have discarded me, your wife, ever ready to serve you with my youthful body. I am a youthful maiden endowed with beauty and mentally agitated by lust. Tell me, what other course can I take when I am denied the amorous sport with my husband? I am very beautiful and agitated with flush of fresh youth. Deprived of sexual intercourse with you, I am extremely distressed. How can I bear the pangs of passion? Suta said, that base Brahmin Binduja, when addressed thus by his wife, foolish and averse to his own duties, said to her, Binduja said, "True indeed is what you have said with your mind agitated by passion. Please listen, my dear wife. I shall tell you something that will be of benefit to you. You need not be afraid. You go ahead with your sexual sports with any number of paramours. No fear need enter your mind. Extract as much of wealth as you can from them and give them enough sexual pleasure. You must hand over all the amount to me. You know that I am enamored of my concubine. Thus our mutual interests will be assured." Suta said his wife Chanchala, on hearing these words of her husband, became extremely delighted and assented to his vicious proposal. Having thus entered into this nefarious mutual contract, the two wicked persons, the husband and wife, fearlessly went ahead with their evil actions. A great deal of time was thus wasted by the foolish couple indulging in their vicious activities. The wicked Binduja, the Brahmin with the Shudra woman for his concubine, died after some years and fell into hell. The foolish fellow endured distress and torture in hell for many days. He then became a ghost in the Vindhya mountain range, continuing to be terribly sinful. After the death of her husband, the wicked Binduja, the woman Chanchala continued to stay in her house with her sons. The woman foolishly continued her amorous dalliance with her paramours till she no longer retained her youthful charms. Due to divine intercession, it chanced that on an auspicious occasion she happened to go to the Gokarna temple in the company of her kinsman. Casually moving about here and there with her kinsman, she happened to take her bath in a holy pond as a normal routine affair. In a certain temple, a scholar of divine wisdom was conducting a discourse on the holy Shivpuran story, some of which she happened to hear. The portion that fell on her ears was the context in which it was said that the servants of Yama would introduce a red-hot iron into the vaginal passage of women who indulge in sexual intercourse with their paramours. This narrative made the Pauranika to increase detachment, made the woman tremble with fear. At the end of the discourse, when all the people dispersed, the terrified woman approached the scholarly Brahmin and spoke to him in confidence. Chanchala said, "O noble sir, please listen to the ignoble activities which I perform without knowing my real duties. O Lord, on hearing the same, you will please take pity on me and lift me up. O Lord, with a mind utterly deluded, I have committed very great sin. Blinded by lust, I spent the whole of my youth in incontinent prostitution. Today, on hearing your learned discourse abounding in the sentiments of non-attachment, I have become extremely terrified and I tremble much. Fie upon me, the foolish sinner of a woman deluded by lust, censurable, clinging to worldly pleasures and averse to my own duties. Unknowingly, a great sin that produces excessive distress has been committed by me for a fleeting glimpse of an evanescent pleasure, a criminal action. Alas, I do not know which terrible goal this will lead me to. My mind has always been turned to evil ways. Which wise man will come to my succor there? At the time of death, how shall I face the terrible messengers of Yama? How shall I feel when they tie nooses forcibly around my neck? How shall I endure in hell the mincing of my body to pieces? How shall I endure the special torture that is excessively painful? I bewail my lot. How can I peacefully proceed with the activity of my sense organs during the day? Agitated with misery, how shall I get peaceful sleep during the night? Alas, I am undone, I am burnt down. My heart is torn to pieces. I am doomed in every respect. I am a sinner of all sorts. O adverse fate, it was you who directed my mind along evil lines. With a hateful stubbornness, you made me commit great sins. I was led astray from the path of my duty that would have bestowed all happiness. O Brahmin, my present pain is millions of times more than that of a man stuck to the stake or hurled from a high mountain top. My sin is so great that it cannot be washed away, even if I take ablutions in the Ganga for 100 years, or even if I perform 100 sacrifices. What shall I do? Where shall I go? Whom shall I resort to? I am falling into the ocean of hell. Who can save me in this world? O noble sir, thou art my preceptor, thou art my mother, thou art my father. I seek refuge in thee. I am in a pitiable plight. Lift me, lift me. Suta said, the intelligent Brahmin mercifully lifted up Chanchula, who had been disgusted with worldly affairs and had fallen at his feet. That Brahmin then spoke as follows, and we will continue that in next Monday, and how Chanchula attained salvation. But is 3 chapters में यही बता रहे हैं that how the reading of Shivpuran, if we realize our mistakes, how it can expiate our karmas, how it can bring us to salvation, and also the duty between a husband and a wife, which one must abide by. So with this, I'm going to hand it over to Mansi Aunty, who will read chapters 1, 2 and 3 in Hindi. Jai Guruji, Shukrana.
जय गुरु जी। श्री गणेशाय नमः। श्री शिवपुराण महात्म्य। शौनक जी के साधन विषय प्रश्न करने पर सूत जी का उन्हें शिवपुराण की उत्कृष्ट महिमा सुनाना। श्री शौनक जी ने पूछा, महाज्ञानी सूत जी, आप संपूर्ण सिद्धांतों के ज्ञाता हैं। प्रभु, मुझसे पुराणों की कथाओं के सार तत्व के विशेष रूप से वर्णन कीजिए। ज्ञान और वैराग्य सहित भक्ति से प्राप्त होने वाले विवेक की वृद्धि कैसे होती है, तथा साधु पुरुष किस प्रकार अपने काम, क्रोध आदि मानसिक विकारों का निवारण करते हैं। इस घोर कलिकाल में जीव प्राय असुर स्वभाव के हो गए हैं। उस जीव समुदाय को शुद्ध अर्थात दैवी संपत्ति से युक्त बनाने के लिए सर्वश्रेष्ठ उपाय क्या है? आप इस समय मुझे ऐसा कोई शाश्वत साधन बताइए जो कल्याणकारी वस्तुओं में भी सबसे उत्कृष्ट एवं परम मंगलकारी हो, तथा पवित्र करने वाले उपायों में भी सर्वोत्तम पवित्र कारक उपाय हो। तात वह साधन ऐसा हो जिसके अनुष्ठान से शीघ्र ही अंतकरण की विशेष शुद्धि हो जाए तथा उसे निर्मल चित्त वाले पुरुष को सदा के लिए शिव की प्राप्ति हो जाए। श्री सुत जी ने कहा, मुनि श्री शौनक, तुम धन्य हो, क्योंकि तुम्हारे हृदय में पुराण कथा सुनने का विशेष प्रेम है एवं लालसा है। इसीलिए मैं शुद्ध बुद्धि से विचार कर तुमसे परम उत्तम शास्त्र का वर्णन करता हूँ। बस वह संपूर्ण शास्त्रों के सिद्धांतों से संपन्न, भक्ति आदि को बढ़ाने वाला तथा भगवान शिव को संतुष्ट करने वाला है। कानों के लिए रसायन अमृत स्वरूप तथा दिव्य है, तुम उसे श्रवण करो। मुने, वह परम उत्तम शास्त्र है शिव पुराण, जिसका पूर्व काल में भगवान शिव ने ही प्रवचन किया। यह काल रूपी सर्प से प्राप्त होने वाला महान त्रास का विनाश करने वाला उत्तम साधन है। गुरुदेव व्यास ने संत कुमार मुनि का उपदेश पाकर बड़े आदर से संक्षेप में ही पुराण का प्रतिपादन किया। इस पुराण के प्रयत्न से का उद्देश्य है कलयुग में उत्पन्न होने वाले मनुष्यों के परम हित का साधन। ये शिव पुराण परम उत्तम शास्त्र है। इसे इस भूतल पर भगवान शिव का वाग्मन रूप समझना चाहिए और सब प्रकार से इसका सेवन करना चाहिए। इसका पठन और श्रवण सर्व साधन रूप है। इसे शिव भक्ति पाकर श्रेष्ठतम स्थितियों में पहुंचा हुआ मनुष्य शीघ्र ही शिव पद को प्राप्त कर लेता है। इसीलिए संपूर्ण यत्न करके मनुष्य ने इस पुराण को पढ़ने की इच्छा की अथवा इसके अध्ययन को अभीष्ट साधन माना है। इसी तरह इस प्रकार प्रेम पूर्वक श्रवण भी संपूर्ण मनोवांछित फलों को देने वाला है। भगवान शिव के इस पुराण को सुनने से मनुष्य सब पापों से मुक्त हो जाता है तथा इस जीवन में बड़े बड़े उत्कृष्ट भोगों को उपभोग कर अंत में शिव लोक को प्राप्त कर लेता है। ये शिव पुराण नामक ग्रंथ 24,000 श्लोकों से युक्त है। इसकी 7 संहिताएं हैं। मनुष्य को चाहिए कि वह भक्ति, ज्ञान और वैराग्य से संपन्न हो बड़े आदर से इसका श्रवण करे। 7 संहिताओं से युक्त ये दिव्य पुराण परम ब्रह्म परमात्मा के समान विराजमान है और सबसे उत्कृष्ट गति पाने प्रदान करने वाला है। जो निरंतर अनुसंधान पूर्वक इस पुराण को वाचता है अथवा नित्य प्रेम पूर्वक इसका पाठ मात्र करता है वह पुण्यात्मा है, इसमें संशय नहीं। जो उत्तम बुद्धि वाला पुरुष अंत काल में भक्ति पूर्वक इस पुराण को सुनता है उस पर अत्यंत प्रसन्न हुए भगवान महेश्वर उसे अपना पद अर्थात धाम प्रदान करते हैं। जो प्रतिदिन आदर पूर्वक इस शिव पुराण का पूजन करता है वह इस संसार में संपूर्ण भोगों को भोग कर अंत में भगवान शिव के पद को प्राप्त कर लेता है। जो प्रतिदिन आलस्य रहित हो रेशमी वस्त्र आदि वेष्टन से शिव पुराण का सत्कार करता है वह सदा सुखी होता है। ये शिव पुराण निर्मल तथा भगवान शिव का सर्वस्व है। जो इहलोक और परलोक में सुख चाहता हो उसे आदर के साथ प्रयत्न पूर्वक इसका सेवन करना चाहिए। ये निर्मल एवं उत्तम शिव पुराण धर्म, अर्थ, काम और मोक्ष रूप चारों पुरुषार्थों को देने वाला है। अतः सदा प्रेम पूर्वक इसका श्रवण एवं विशेष पाठ करना चाहिए। अध्याय 1 समाप्त। शिव पुराण के श्रवण से देवराज को शिवलोक की प्राप्ति तथा चंचला का पाप से भय एवं संसार से वैराग्य। श्री शौनक जी ने कहा, महाभाग सूत जी, आप धन्य हैं, परमार्थ तत्व के ज्ञाता हैं। अपनी कृपा करके हम लोगों को बड़ी अद्भुत एवं दिव्य कथा सुनानी है। भूतल पर इस कथा के समान कल्याणकारी सर्वश्रेष्ठ साधन दूसरा कोई नहीं है। ये बात हमने आज आपकी कृपा से निश्चय पूर्वक समझ ली है। सुत जी, कलयुग में इस कथा के द्वारा कौन कौन से पापी शुद्ध होते हैं, उन्हें कृपा पूर्वक बताइए और इस जगत को कृतार्थ कीजिए। सुत जी बोले, मुने, जो मनुष्य पापी, दुराचारी, खल तथा काम क्रोध आदि में निरंतर डूबे रहने वाला है, वे भी इस शिव पुराण के श्रवण पठन से अवश्य ही शुद्ध हो जाते हैं। इसी विषय में जानकर मुनि ने इस प्राचीन इतिहास का उदाहरण दिया करते हैं। इसके श्रवण मात्र से पापों का पूर्णतया नाश हो जाता है। पहले की बात है, कहीं किरातों के नगर में एक ब्राह्मण रहता था, जो ज्ञान में अत्यंत दुर्बल, दरिद्र, रस बेचने वाला तथा वैदिक धर्म से विमुख था। वह स्नान संध्या आदि कर्मों से भ्रष्ट हो गया था और वैश्यवृत्ति में तत्पर रहता था। उसका नाम था देवराज। वह अपने ऊपर विश्वास करने वाला लोगों को ठगा करता था। उसने ब्राह्मणों, क्षत्रियों, वैश्यों, शूद्रों तथा दूसरों को भी अनेक बहानों से मारकर उनका धन हड़प लिया था, परंतु पापी का थोड़ा सा भी धन कभी धर्म काम में नहीं लगा था। वहां वेश्यागामी तथा सब प्रकार से आचार भ्रष्ट था। एक दिन घूमता घामता वह देवयोग से प्रतिष्ठानपुर अर्थात चूसी प्रयाग पे जा पहुंचा। वहां उसने एक शिवालय देखा, जहां बहुत से साधु महात्मा एकत्र हुए थे। देवराज उस शिवालय में ठहर गया, किंतु वहां उस ब्राह्मण को ज्वर आ गया। उस ज्वर से उसकी बड़ी पीड़ा होने लगी। वहां एक ब्राह्मण देवता शिव पुराण कथा सुना रहे थे। ज्वर में पड़ा हुआ देवराज ब्राह्मण के मुखारबिंद से निकली हुई उस शिव कथा को सुनकर निरंतर सुनता रहा। 1 मास बाद जब ज्वर से अत्यंत पीड़ित होकर चल बसा, यमराज के दूत आए और उसे पाशों में बांधकर बलपूर्वक यमपुरी ले गए। इतने में ही शिवलोक से भगवान शिव के पार्षदगण आए। उनके गौर अंग कपूर के समान उज्जवल थे, हाथ त्रिशूल से सुशोभित हो रहे थे, उनके संपूर्ण अंग भस्म से उद्भासित थे और रुद्राक्ष की मालाएं उनके शरीर की शोभा बढ़ा रही थीं। वे सब के सब क्रोधपूर्वक यमपुरी में गए और यमराज के दूतों को मार पीट कर बारंबार धमकाकर उन्होंने देवराज को उनके चंगुल से छुड़ा लिया और अत्यंत अद्भुत विमान पर बिठाकर जब वे शिवदूत कैलाश जाने को उद्यत हुए, उस समय यमपुरी में बड़ा भारी कोलाहल मच गया। उस कोलाहल को सुनकर धर्मराज अपने भवन से बाहर आए। साक्षात दूसरे रुद्रों के समान प्रतीत होने वाले उन चारों दूतों को देखकर धर्मज्ञ धर्मराज ने उनका विधि पूर्वक पूजन किया और ज्ञान दृष्टि से देखकर सारा वृतांत जान लिया। उन्होंने भय के कारण भगवान शिव के उन महात्मा दूतों को कोई बात नहीं पूछी, उल्टे उनकी सबकी पूजा एवं प्रार्थना की। तत्पश्चात वे शिवदूत कैलाश को चले गए और वहां पहुंचकर उन्होंने उस ब्राह्मण को दया सागर साम शिव के हाथों में दे दिया। शौनक जी ने कहा, महाभाग सूत जी, आप सर्वज्ञ हैं। महामते, आपकी कृपा प्रसाद से मैं बारंबार कृतार्थ हुआ। इस इतिहास को सुनकर मेरा मन अत्यंत आनंद में निमग्न हो रहा है। अतः आप भगवान शिव में प्रेम बढ़ाने वाली शिव संबंधिनी दूसरी कथा को भी कहिए। श्री सूत जी बोले, शौनक सुनो, मैं तुम्हारे सामने गोपनीय कथा वस्तु का भी वर्णन करूंगा, क्योंकि तुम शिव भक्तों में अग्रगण्य तथा वेद वेताओं में श्रेष्ठ हो। समुद्र के निकटवर्ती प्रवेश में एक वाशकर नामक ग्राम है, जहाँ वैदिक धर्म से विमुख महापापी द्विज निवास करते हैं। वे सबके सब बड़े दुष्ट हैं। उनका मन दूषित विषयों में भोगों में ही लगा रहता है। वे न देवताओं पर विश्वास करते हैं, न भाग्य पर। वे सभी कुटिल वृत्ति वाले हैं, किसानी करते हैं और भांति भांति के घातक अस्त्र शस्त्र रखते हैं। वे व्याभिचारी और खल हैं। ज्ञान, वैराग्य तथा सधर्म सेवन ही मनुष्य के लिए परम पुरुषार्थ है, इस बातों का बिल्कुल नहीं जानते हैं। वे सभी पशु बुद्धि वाले हैं, अर्थात जहाँ के द्विज ऐसे हो, वहां के अन्य वर्णों का विश्व में क्या कहा जाए। अन्य वर्णों के लोग भी उन्हीं की भांति कुसित विचार रखने वाले स्वधर्म विमुख एवं खल हैं। वे सदा कुकर्म में लगे रहते हैं और नित्य विषय भोगों में ही डूबे रहते हैं। वहां की सब स्त्रियां भी कुटिल स्वभाव की, स्वेच्छाचारिणी, पापासक्त, कुसित विचार वाली और व्यभिचारिणी हैं। वे सब व्यवहार तथा सदाचार से सर्वथा शून्य हैं। इस प्रकार वहां दुष्टों का ही निवास है। उस वाशकर नामक ग्राम में किसी समय एक बिंदुक नामधारी ब्राह्मण रहता था। वह बड़ा अधम था, दुरात्मा और महापापी था। यद्यपि उसकी स्त्री बड़ी सुंदर थी, तो भी वह कुमार्ग पर ही चलता था। उसकी पत्नी का नाम चंचला था। वह सदा उत्तम धर्म पालने में लगी रहती थी, तो भी उसे छोड़कर वह दुष्ब्राह्मण वेश्यागामी हो गया था। इस तरह कुकर्म में लगे हुए उस बिंदु के बहुत वर्ष व्यतीत हो गए थे। उसकी स्त्री चंचला काम से पीड़ित होने पर भी स्वधर्म नाश के भय से क्लेश सहकर भी दीर्घ काल तक धर्म से भ्रष्ट नहीं हुई, परंतु दुराचारी पति के आचरण से प्रभावित होकर आगे चलकर वह स्त्री भी दुराचारणी हो गई। इस तरह दुराचार में डूबे हुए उन मूर्छित वाले पति पत्नी का बहुत सा समय व्यर्थ ही बीत गया। तदंतर शूद्र जातीय वैश्य का पति बना हुआ वह दूषित बुद्धि वाला दुष्ब्राह्मण बिंदु समय अनुसार मृत्यु को प्राप्त होकर नरक में जा पड़ा। बहुत दिनों तक नरक के दुख भोगकर जब वह मूढ़ बुद्धि पापी विंध्य पर्वत पर भयंकर पिशाच हुआ, इधर उस दुराचारी पति बिंदु के मर जाने पर वह मूढ़ हृदय चंचला बहुत समय तक पुत्रों के साथ अपने घर में ही रही। एक दिन देवयोग से किसी पुण्य पर्व के आने पर वह स्त्री भाई बंधुओं के साथ गोकर्ण क्षेत्र में गई। तीर्थ यात्रियों के संग से उसे भी उस समय जाकर किसी तीर्थ के जल में स्नान किया। फिर वह साधारणतया बंधुजनों के साथ यत्र तत्र घूमने लगी। घूमती घामती किसी देव मंदिर में गई और वहां उसने एक दैवज्ञ ब्राह्मण के मुख से भगवान शिव की परम पवित्र मंगलकारिणी उत्तम पौराणिक कथा सुनी। कथावाचक ब्राह्मण कह रहे थे कि जो स्त्रियां पर पुरुष के साथ व्यभिचार करती हैं, वह मरने के बाद जब यमलोक में जाती हैं, तब यमराज दूत उनकी योनियों में तपे हुए लोहे के पारिक डालते हैं। पौराणिक ब्राह्मण के मुख से ये वैराग्य बढ़ाने वाली कथा सुनकर चंचला भय से व्याकुल वहां कांपने लगी। जब कथा समाप्त हुई और सुनने वाले सब लोग वहां से बाहर चले गए, तब वह भयभीत नारी एकांत में शिव पुराण की कथा बांचने वाले उस ब्राह्मण देवता से बोली। चंचला ने कहा, ब्राह्मण, मैं अपने धर्म को नहीं जानती थी, इसीलिए मेरे द्वारा बड़ा दुराचार हुआ है। स्वामिन, मेरे ऊपर अनुपम कृपा करके आप मेरा उद्धार कीजिए। आज आपके वैराग्य रस ने ओतप्रोत प्रवचन को सुनकर मुझे बड़ा भय लग रहा है। मैं कांप उठी हूँ और मुझे इस संसार से वैराग्य हो गया है। मुझे मूर्छित वाले पापिनी को धिक्कार है। मैं सर्वथा निंदा के योग्य हूँ, कुत्सित विषयों में फंसी हुई हूँ और अपने धर्म से विमुख हो गई हूँ। हाय, ना जाने किस किस घोर कष्टदायक दुर्गतियों में मुझे पड़ना पड़ेगा और वहाँ कौन बुद्धिमान पुरुष कुमार में मन लगाने वाली मुझ पापिनी का साथ देगा। मृत्यु काल में उन भयंकर यमदूतों को मैं कैसे देखूंगी। जब वे बलपूर्वक मेरे गले में फंदे डालकर मुझे बांधेंगे, तब मैं कैसे धीरज धारण कर सकूंगी। नरक में जब मेरे शरीर के टुकड़े टुकड़े किए जाएंगे, उस समय विशेष दुख देने वाली उस महायातना को मैं वहां कैसे सहूंगी। हाय, मैं मारी गई, मैं जल गई, मेरा हृदय विदीन हो गया और मैं सब प्रकार से नष्ट हो गई, क्योंकि मैं हर तरह से पापों में डूबी रही हूँ। ब्राह्मण, आप ही मेरे गुरु, आप ही मेरी माता और आप ही मेरे पिता हैं। आपकी शरण में आई हूँ, मुझे दीन अबला का आप ही उद्धार कीजिए, उद्धार कीजिए। सूची कहते हैं, शौनक, इस प्रकार खेद और वैराग्य से युक्त हुई चंचला ब्राह्मण देवताओं के दोनों चरणों में गिर पड़ी। अब उन बुद्धिमान ब्राह्मण ने कृपा पूर्वक उसे उठाया और इस प्रकार कहा। अध्याय 2 और 3 समाप्त। जय गुरु जी। इस अध्याय में हमने यही सुना कि शिव पुराण एक ऐसा महापूजनीय ग्रंथ है जिसे सुनने या पढ़ने से ना सिर्फ इस लोक में, परलोक में, हर जगह शिव भगवान हमारा सर्व कल्याण करते हैं और अंत में हम सदा शिव के लोक को प्राप्त करते हैं। गुरुजी भी कहते थे, शिव पुराण पढ़ो। अगर आप में से किसी को भी शिव पुराण पढ़नी है तो आप मुझे कांटेक्ट कर सकते हैं और हम यहाँ आपकी रीडिंग करवा सकते हैं। वैसे भी चाहें तो घर में ज़रूर कोशिश करें, एक पेज, एक पैराग्राफ, एक लाइन से इसकी शुरुआत करें और गुरुजी की ब्लेसिंग्स और शिव जी की ब्लेसिंग्स लेते रहें। जय गुरुजी, शुक्राना गुरुजी।